it's not a far trip, but what was like the best trip either of you have ever been on?
I will interject here because you just put something into my head that I'm going to put as a little side mini question for us here too.
Sure.
What do you consider like a far trip, and what's a short trip? And like, what would be the distance that you are like, I am no longer willing to take this by car. This must be flown. I've heard 6 hours is the length that people are willing to drive generally.
Yeah, I don't know. Like 8 hours would probably be like where I either choose to fly or like I'll stop, I'll take a break.
Yeah.
I think for me, it really depends on like the situation. Like, I mean, sometimes just doing the road trip thing is fun.
Yeah.
And like sometimes just like going the distance, stopping in various towns and experiencing the other town on your way to the destination, sometimes that's fun. So I mean, I don't think it's really time that's the factor for me, but more what is on the way.
Yeah. And then there's obviously the case where like you're not gonna drive if you're on like if you only have 4 days to take this trip. For example, like you're just doing a quick one, you're not driving, you're going to, like when I went to Toronto recently, that's about a 20-something hour drive from here. And we elected to drive, even though it probably ended up costing us more in the long run, because it was just like, we made more of a trip of the drive. Like we went through Chicago, we had fun along the way. And then Toronto, we didn't even spend that much time there actually.
Right.
It was more of a road trip than anything.
Yeah.
So now that I've interrupted you guys, what is the answer to Cole's question? The best trip you've ever been on?
Jay.
Okay.
Yes, Jay.
I've been on a few trips in my lifetime. Probably the most interesting one was going to Israel, just because like it was so different from everything else I've ever done. Like, I've been to Alaska, but that felt like I was still kind of in like the same.
Yeah, it's a similar like ecosystem to what we have here.
Alaska's like a weird bit too, because it's like you're basically completely surrounded by Canada and then a little bit of Russia.
Yeah.
But somehow you're the USA. Same thing with Hawaii. Like it's a strange situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I've been to the Bahamas, which was cool, but I was there for like maybe 3 days, and then took a cruise back to Florida. So like it really wasn't enough time to like really soak it in. Whereas Israel, I was there for like 3 weeks. And
that's a long trip.
Yeah. So like I really got to soak in the environment, the history and all that, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my answer.
The nice thing about like a 3-week trip is that like by the end, like you've almost been there too long. Like for me, I think like a week is too short, and then 2 weeks is probably like the perfect length, right? Whereas like 3 weeks, like you're basically living there for a month, right? Like that's
yeah. But at the same time, like, because we were literally traveling the entire country, because like Israel's so small that you can literally drive from tip to tip in an entire day.
Just the tip.
Yeah. So like we basically traveled the entire country, or at least as much as we could, barring current political issues that I don't want to go into detail of.
I was gonna say it's obviously like a little more hazardous than Alaska. Like, or I guess completely different hazards, right?
Yeah, they were like they were literally like that like do not cross tape in certain areas, and we're like, don't go there.
Yeah, you will get shot.
Or you will get either shot or you will step on a landmine.
That's so crazy to me. Like you can just be walking and then step on a landmine. Like we're so sheltered here in Canada that like the idea of like being in a minefield is crazy to me.
Yeah, no, that's probably like one of the most insane things that's ever happened. And I'm sure some of the listeners might understand that experience of like going somewhere and just like the ecosystem really showing you how sheltered you are and how like well off you are and where you live.
Yeah. how different it is.
Speaking of how sheltered we are and how we haven't traveled much, like I really haven't traveled that much in my life. I've actually never left the continent of North America in my entire life. I've been as far to the, is it west? Yeah, the west of Canada is like Edmonton and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't actually seen that. I haven't seen the Pacific Ocean yet. And then I've been to, I have seen the Pacific Ocean when I went to Mexico. Okay, I went to Mexico. That's about it. And then I went on a cruise when I was 18. But unfortunately, I didn't know this. Did you know that when you're on a cruise, the drinking age is 21 in international waters?
Really?
Yeah, so I was, my 18th birthday, I celebrated it in Florida. Florida's great to go to, by the way. So it's 21 in the States, obviously. It's 18 in Canada, by the way, for you American listeners.
Yeah. Well, depending on where you are in Canada.
Depending on where you are, yeah. Where we are, it's 18.
It's 19 in BC. I know that.
I think Ontario, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's 18 here. So I turned 18 on the plane down to Florida. Florida's a great place, by the way. I enjoyed visiting there. I don't know if I could live there. It's too hot and too many bugs and crocodiles and stuff. But I'm sitting in Boston Lobster Feast celebrating my 18th birthday. Like,
I love it.
This is great. I'm eating unlimited seafood, which is also great because we live in the middle of Canada. So like, there's literally like fresh seafood is not something that we really do here. It's all been frozen basically.
Yeah.
And I'm feasting on lobster. My parents, I think, bought me a drink and then just like, you know, like this is the embarrassing thing. Like I'm of legal drinking age in the place where I grew up and live. But I still had to get my parents to buy me a drink. And then I go get on the cruise. I'm like, heck yeah, me and my cousin, we're going to get crazy and wild. We're two wild, crazy young men. And then I get on the thing and I notice, wait a minute, you have to be 18 or you have to be 21 to buy this beer. So then basically I had to mooch off my cousin the whole time anyway. It was great. It was a fun trip, but that was a silly little
I bet you the wrinkle there wasn't because it was like international waters, but because the ship was like an American ship.
No, they actually explained it because I handed them my ID and they actually explained it to me.
Because international waters, there is no law.
Yes, there is.
No, that's famous for not having laws. That's why people like go out into international waters and like do stuff that they're not supposed to.
What do they do in international waters?
Well, okay, the tame one would be like pirate radio. Like they just go out in international waters and broadcast illegal radio stations.
Yeah.
So, no, that's I've never been on a cruise ship though. I've been on like ships that are docked. In London, I went on the HMS Belfast, which was a World War II battleship. That was cool. Okay, well, sorry. Let me. Yeah.
Now Cole gets to talk about all his trips that he's been on.
The two big overseas trips, of course, I just mentioned London and Japan. Everybody on the podcast has heard me gush about going to Japan.
Well, there might be new listeners. That was already like probably 20 episodes ago.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. I went in February of this year. It was really fun.
Did the fact that you kind of like had a podcast to talk about your trip and all that change the experience at all?
Yeah. As a podcast host, did you experience Japan differently from a normal person?
No. Like, I mean, like, knowing that like you were probably going to go home and talk about it and...
Yeah, given that I am like a podcast host and not a normal person.
An internationally recognized podcast host, Cole.
No, I don't like, it's funny. I'm on a podcast talking to you guys, but I don't really talk about stuff like in person with people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't
like
really
people
tell
ask
people
me like
I'm on a podcast either.
How was your trip, Cole?
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's not like I don't want to share. It's, I don't know, something.
I've known you a long time, Cole, and it sometimes you're just like, it takes a bit of a kick in the butt to get you to actually talk about something. Like you don't just bring it up. I'll be like, "Okay, well, tell me what was the best food you ate in Japan," and then you'll go on for 30 minutes about the food you ate.
Yeah,
but you'll never actually say, "Oh, I had this great ramen in Japan."
Yeah, it's something only my therapist would know. What that problem is.
Yeah, like I remember you were talking only about the burgers you ate and not about like the delicious Japanese meals you were having.
Yeah, Cole ate a ridiculous amount of burgers in Japan.
Well, I mean, you got to try the different Japanese burgers.
To be fair, I would try McDonald's too. Yeah.
It's funny, like, Mike, I never realized you weren't. This is going to come off as like very pretentious. I didn't realize you didn't travel very much as a kid.
No. Not
like
see, this is the thing. My parents' classic move is me and my sister stay home and my parents go off on a trip somewhere. They taught me to be self-reliant at a very young age, and they were like, "Great, see you later."
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I was pretty well traveled as a kid. Actually, my first big trip
a lot.
Was to Ottawa, of all places.
I'm going there this Thursday.
Ottawa's a beautiful city, but I was super young. I don't really remember that much about it. Then we went to Disneyland in California. That was a
you
road
went to
trip.
Disneyland? I was actually about to ask you that, Cole, because I went when I was 5.
Yeah, no, I was. It was the summer of like grade 7 into grade 8, and it was a road trip. We drove down there from where we are.
Oh, sweet.
Was it the Florida one then?
No, that was the California one.
California one? Okay, because we're like kind of in the middle of the two, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I've been to Disney World as well in Florida.
Yep.
That one we flew to. But better than Disney, if you ever go to Florida, or if you're in Florida, go to Kennedy Space Center. It's the coolest thing.
I couldn't convince my family to go the couple times I've been to Florida. And
just next time, if you ever go again, just go by yourself.
Yeah. I was also like young, but yes.
Yeah. I went to Florida. I've been to Florida once, and I had the choice of either going to Disney World or Universal. I chose Universal.
I made the same choice that you did, Cole. Or Jay. I made the same choice. I went to Universal instead because it was already like expensive and I had limited time as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Shazana is like a giant Harry Potter fan, so that kind of pushed it over the edge. And I'm not really a Disney person in general, so now that they have the Star Wars thing.
For me, it was like I had already been to Disneyland, so like it kind of would have been a very similar experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas Universal is like it's different IPs from Disney stuff, so it would have been at least something new.
Mm-hmm.
Disney World is pretty fun though.
I want to go. I might save it for like when I have kids. I think that's probably when I'll actually get to visit there. Yeah.